Hi everyone, I'm Robin Sewell. All of us at some time or another deal with stress and hardships in our lives. Resilience gives us the strength to cope and bounce back from difficult life events, problems, and challenges. But do you know the elements that make up resilience? Or most importantly, how do we build it? Today on Real Time Real Health, we are going to share with you a powerful story of a life and near-death journey, a journey that is all about resilience.
There are tens of ways to die off the Golden Gate Bridge, and they're mostly slow and violent.
Kevin Hines jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge and somehow survived the fall.
The absolute moment that my hands left that rail, I had this instantaneous regret for my actions and this 100% recognition that I had just made the greatest mistake of my life, and it was too late.
Kevin Hines struggled with severe mental health issues. Even the support of his loving adoptive family was not enough to stop his thoughts of suicide that brought him to the Golden Gate Bridge, then sent him over the edge. Kevin's experience is a cautionary tale of how trauma and mental health issues can spiral out of control if you are not equipped with resilience.
Resilience is the pathway to hope, and you have to fight to have resilience.
And by sharing his story, he hopes to better equip the rest of us in the practice and power of resilience.
I was born in squalor in a crack motel. I was born in severe poverty. I was adopted, taken in by a beautiful family, became a Hines. But that traumatic infancy and that detachment disorder that I originally developed and the abandonment issues that I have until today would play a factoring role in my jumping off the Golden Gate Bridge. Next to that, I was bullied heavily in grade school and high school for being smaller and for being part black. I'm not going to get into it, but it was vicious. That played a massive role in my developing clinical depression in the form of bipolar disorder 2 years prior to jumping off the Golden Gate Bridge. And at 17 and a half years of age, my brain's functioning began to crumble. I began to have extreme paranoid delusions, believing people were out to get me, trying to hurt me, trying to kill me. And I also began to have hallucinations, auditory and visual, seeing and hearing things nobody else could see or hear, but believing them to be 100% real as the hands in front of my face. I got really good at one thing, silencing my pain, and I buried it.
So at that point, did you say to yourself, oh my gosh, if I tell anybody what I've been thinking, that they could just put me away somewhere and throw away the key? I mean, was that a fear that you had? That
it was a massive fear, and you put the words right in my mouth. I thought that if I tell anybody about these ideations I'm having, which I didn't know they were called that, if I tell anybody about these thoughts, they'll lock me up in a white-walled padded room and throw away the key. So I was silent in my pain for 2 years. I would skyrocket up into mania. I would crash into depression. My family was worried about me. I was seeing a psychiatrist. I was put on medications during that time period. I end up at 19 years of age writing that note. The note that my mom and my dad and my brother and my sister and my best friend get to read.
What did that note say?
And that note said something to the effect of, Mom, I love you, but you're not always right. Dad, I love you, but stop bringing the office home. This isn't work. And I said to my best friend, what I always say is arguably the worst part of the entire note, you'll find another best friend, as if that's remotely how it works. Put that note in my shoulder bag and that shoulder bag by the door. And on that day, September 25th, the year 2000, the day after I wrote that note, I convinced my father that I was fine. I lied. Because I didn't want him to see the pain I was in, because I feared that he would lock me up, and because I believed that I was useless, worthless, and had no value. I was hearing voices in my head, auditory hallucinations, telling me I had to die.
Do you also think that at that point you didn't want them to blame themselves?
Well, I believe that they all wanted me gone. I believe that they thought I was their greatest burden, which is a common theme amongst people who were suicidal. This perceived burdensomeness where you believe that everyone around you would be better off with you out of the picture. But it's just not true.
Before Kevin made his way to the bridge, he stopped to drop his college classes. So this was really methodically planned out.
On that day, I believed I had to die by suicide, and I made my way on a bus to the Golden Gate Bridge. And that bus ride I remember vividly. I sat in the very back row in the middle seat looking out upon everyone. But here's the deal. Unlike I was with my father that morning, which I was not ambivalent on that morning, I just could see death and nothing else, and I didn't want him to get in my way. But on that bus, all I wanted to do was live while my brain was trying to kill me. And so I'm on that bus and I'm crying my eyes out, just waterfalls flowing from my eyes. And I began to yell aloud on a crowded bus filled with people. There's 100 people on this bus. I'm in the centermost back seat, so everyone who sees me can see me crying. And I begin to yell aloud, "Leave me alone, but I don't want to die. Why do you hate me so much? What did I ever do to you?" To the voices in my head. And now 100 people are not just paying attention to themselves, they're looking right at me because I've just screamed on a bus filled with all these people. And that's when a man to my left turned to the guy next to him and said, while pointing at me with his thumb in a callous tone, "What the hell's wrong with that kid?" With a smile on his face.
So quickly, somebody dismissed you. And they
Completely
said,
dismissed me.
"Oh, he's just a nut job,
he's
right?
crazy.
He's crazy."
Yeah. And it wasn't just that. All I wanted on that bus was for one person to say, "Hey kid, are you okay?
Right.
Brother, is something wrong, or pal, can I help you?"
And perhaps if somebody had said that, maybe you would have changed your mind.
I would have told them everything and begged them to save me. I would have let everything out and begged them to save me. Conversely, if someone had said to me, "Hey kid, are you thinking of killing yourself?" I would have told them because I desperately wanted someone to read my mind, but I couldn't say it out loud, right?
Right.
And so there I was on that bus, alone in my thoughts and in my pain. Had one person intervened, it would have been a different story.
Before we continue with Kevin's story, if you or anyone you know is in crisis, contact the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-8255. That's 800-273-TALK.
For the next 40 minutes, Kevin would pace along the guardrails of the Golden Gate Bridge. He is hoping someone will recognize his pain and save him from jumping.
I was on that rail, I found a particular light rail. I'm leaning over and I'm crying my tears to the waters below. And I was begging myself to ask someone for help. And that's when a woman approached me from my left. And she had blonde curly hair and giant sunglasses on, and I thought she was gonna save me. I thought, this is it, I don't have to do this. I don't have to die today. Then she pulled out a digital camera and said, "Will you take my picture?" And I took her picture 5 times. She posed. She took her camera, she walked away. It was at that moment that I said, absolutely no one cares. The furthest thing from the truth. Everybody cared, but I couldn't see it. I went back toward the traffic railing, I sprinted forward, and I catapulted my hands off the rail. The absolute moment that my hands left that rail, I had this instantaneous regret for my actions, and this 100% recognition that I had just made the greatest mistake of my life, and it was too late.
The bridge walkway where Kevin jumped is 220 feet above the water. Kevin says it took several seconds for him to fall that distance. The water under the bridge is about 55 degrees, cold enough that without a wetsuit, a person's body will quickly become hypothermic and they will likely drown. There are at least 10 kinds of sharks in the bay waters under the bridge. Since 1937, more than 1,700 people have jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge. Kevin says of the 26 people who, like him, survived the fall, 19 have come forward to say they had the same regret as Kevin.
How did I survive? You know, I have to be frank with you, I give it up to God.
I mean, the water alone, the impact of the water
oh.
should have killed you, correct?
I had learned what I thought was true, which is actually false. That if you jump off the Golden Gate Bridge, you die upon impact, and that's just not true. There are tens of ways to die off the Golden Gate Bridge, and they're mostly slow and violent. It shattered my T12, L1, and L2 into shards, and they popped and splintered in my insides. I missed that day severing my spinal cord by 2 millimeters. Wow. Millimeters. I went down in the water 70 feet, because a vacuum sucks you under because you fall from such a height. I went down 70 feet, I opened my eyes, and I was drowning. And I didn't know which way was up or down. I start to swim in any direction. I'm going down. My eyes begin to bulge, my ears begin to ring. I knew I made a mistake. I shot for the opposite direction. I'm swimming as fast as my arms would take me. It was the fastest I ever swam in my life because all I wanted to do was live. And I get closer and closer to this lit circle of water above me. And I remember I started to convulse. I was running out of air. I thought, you can't die here, Kevin. If you die here, no one will ever know you didn't want to. Mm-hmm. No one will ever know you knew you made a mistake. I broke the surface of the water, I bobbed up and down, and I did the one thing I've had control over since kindergarten. I prayed. God, please save me. I don't want to die. God, please save me. I don't want to die. I made a mistake. On repeat, and I believe he heard me.
Kevin's life did not end that day. Luck and faith would intervene and be part of his survival story. The right people were nearby, people who took action with enough speed to change his fate.
It turned out, I would learn later, a woman driving by in a red car saw me go over the rail at the moment of my attempt, and she called her friend from a car phone in the United States Coast Guard, who happened to be manning the waters of the bridge at that moment. The singular reason the Coast Guard boat arrived to my position within a 3-minute window before I would set in hypothermia was because of that woman's phone call. In the water, secondarily, in the water before the Coast Guard boat arrived, I was drowning. I couldn't stay above water. I kept going down. My boots were waterlogged, my long sleeve clothing was heavy,
Right.
and I go down one more time, and I think to myself, this is it. Mm-hmm. It's over. Mm-hmm. No one's coming to save me. Mm-hmm. And then something begins to circle beneath me, something very large and very slimy and very, very alive. And I remember thinking to myself, you've got to be kidding me.
This is a shark.
And
You had to have thought this is a
yes,
shark. You're in the
yes.
Pacific Ocean. You're in San Francisco, right?
These are shark-infested waters. I thought, this is a shark. It's gonna bite off my leg or bite off my arm or my head and it's over. Mm-hmm. But it didn't bite me. It's just circling faster and faster, faster and faster. No longer am I wading in the water to stay afloat. I'm being held atop the water on my back by this creature circling beneath me. It's basically bumping my shoulders and the backs of my legs, and it's keeping me afloat. And I'm thinking to myself, this is the nicest shark I've ever seen, you know? And well, it turned out it was no shark at all, but there was in fact a sea lion, and the people above on the bridge looking down believed it to be keeping our body afloat. And when the Coast Guard boat arrived, they said, kid, do you know what you just did? I was fully conscious and aware. I said, yeah, I just jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge. And they said, why? And I said, I don't know. I thought I had to die today. And they looked at me and they said, son, do you understand how many people we pull out of these waters that are already gone? And I remember saying, no, and I don't want to know. They said, we're going to tell you anyway. I said, young man, this unit alone, this year alone, has pulled out 26 dead bodies from these waters. And one live one, you. And that gave me the greatest point of perspective I think I've ever received in my life. Because even though I would be in pain for the next 21 years until now, struggling with a severe mental illness on a daily basis, living with paranoid delusions, hallucinations, auditory and visual, manias and depressions and panic attacks and anxiety attacks, I would never again attempt to take my life so long as I should live, because I knew my thoughts didn't have to become my actions. And today, every time I'm suicidal, I turn to my wife, my father, my family, my friends, or people I don't even know. Heck, if you were the only person in the room and I was struggling, I would tell you 4 simple but effective words. I need help now.
So, in other words, when you were pulled from the water, did you just say to yourself, oh my God, I'm just so grateful to be alive? I
did, and I had an epiphany. You know, I can't do this again to myself. I can't do it again to my family. And I live with chronic thoughts of suicide. They plague me. They'll never take me. I'm not suicidal every day. I think about it often enough that it plagues me. I get to the point sometimes of planning it, but then I go to people and I say, I need help now. And that's my shorthand. They know when I say that, like that, they know it means Kevin's thinking of suicide right now. We need to get him the help he needs. And sometimes that means that I need to go in to inpatient and spend some time in a psychiatric hospital. But other times that means I just need to talk about what's on my mind and get it off my chest and tell my truth and be comforted by people. I don't need people to listen to respond. I need people to listen to understand. I need people to actively listen and say, I've got your back, you're not alone, we're in this together, and suicide is not the answer.
Before we continue with Kevin's incredible story, let's take a pause. If you or anyone you know is in crisis, contact the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-8255. That's 800-273-TALK.
We've been listening to the amazing story of Kevin Hines, a young man who had a mental health breakdown. His suicidal thoughts turned into action. Kevin jumped from the Golden Gate Bridge, and somehow he survived.
So, some people who hear your story will think, wow, in comparison to Kevin, my problems are not nearly as dramatic or as severe as his.
No matter the severity of the situation, in your opinion, it's not that my pain is less or worse than yours. It's just different.
Our lives are full of challenges and struggles. They could be related to family, relationships, work, health. Everyone can benefit from building resilience.
Everyone's pain matters. Your pain is valid, your pain is worthy of my time and others, and your pain matters simply because you do.
In watching Kevin in the video, I'm really overwhelmed with his courage and with his insight. He's really, first of all, talking about this internal battle between his feelings and his actions.
Dr. Stephen Porges developed the polyvagal theory. The polyvagal theory explores the way our thoughts, bodies, and actions are all connected.
When our bodies are calm, we're social. When our bodies are in a state of threat, we're reactive, defensive, and self-serving. Kevin describes his own body as being a state of threat, and with that state of threat comes a bias of how he interacts with others. Everything is negative, no one cares.
So one important step in building resilience is finding and creating relationships with other people.
Our pleasures in life are about connection with others.
Connecting with others is critical in building resilience.
Relational wealth is really where we as human beings thrive, because again, we're hardwired to connect with each other. We're not built to be alone or to be separate.
Randy Brazy is the Chief Medical Officer at Resilient Health. Resilient Health's purpose is to unleash the power of their employees and participants to create a resilient world, one person at a time. Resilient Health promotes core practices or pillars of resilience. These pillars are sense of achievement, meaning and purpose, relational wealth, healthy practices, and emotional regulation.
And emotional regulation simply means that if I have anxiety or depression or mood swings occurring in my brain, what can I do about it? Do I have the skills and the techniques that will help me to really ride the wave?
Kevin has developed a strategy of routines to help him build emotional regulation.
I began to build this Art of Wellness toolkit, and if you can imagine, we've got therapy, and that comes in many forms. Therapy can mean different things for different people. Music therapy, art therapy, blue wave light box therapy, breathwork therapy, resonance breathing, and then talk therapy was really important for me.
Kevin creates a toolkit for himself, and that toolkit is functionally a visualization of predictability. The notion of predictability is, to our nervous system, a metaphor for safety.
Kevin started eating better, which was important because he was overweight and pre-diabetic. And he started exercising.
The third pillar that we talk about is healthy practices. And those really can be something as simple as good diet, connecting with your primary care provider to get your medical needs met. It could be also healthy practices like avoiding maybe substances, or whether it's shopping, gambling, anything that might throw you out of equilibrium or not be really good for your physical or psychological health. In addition to that, then, we're hoping that people get another pillar, which is that sort of sense of completion, or the sense of being victorious, is the way I like to look at it. And once people have that sense of achievement, that really boosts confidence. And through that, people can actually start to realize that they can do the emotional regulation themselves at that point, that they have the ability to move forward regardless of what life throws at them.
Toolkits and pillars give us a structure to work around and serve to coach us towards learning resilience. But the purpose in learning and practicing resilience is to keep moving our lives forward with meaning and purpose.
Every human being needs some kind of meaning and purpose for their life. And often people, when they struggle with things like depression or severe anxiety, it's very easy to get disconnected from that, or to start to question, what is my purpose in life? What meaning does my life have?
You have to fight to have resilience. You're not just granted resilience because you want it. You have to work toward that end. Once you get to be resilient, it doesn't have to ever leave you. And I never let pain defeat me. Instead, I let it build me brick by brick from the ground up to be the most resilient person I can be, and to have hope in the darkest of my hours. So every time I'm suicidal, I pull from that resilience and I say to myself, suicide is not the answer, it's the problem.
Kevin Hines is living proof that you can survive and thrive through the toughest of circumstances when you understand and implement the power of resilience. I'm Robin Sewell. Thank you so much for watching Real Time, Real Health.